Hi everybody, my name is Sadie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today is February 1st, which means I am going to be doing a January reading wrap up. I read 12 books in the month of January. I'm just going to run through those and kind of talk about them with you, chat a little bit, give you my ratings and whatnot. First book that I read in the month of January was Ghosted by Rosie Walsh. Our two main characters, Sarah and Eddie, they meet kind of instantly and have this connection, and they're both like, this is the person that I've been waiting for my entire life. Eddie kind of leaves to go on a holiday and says he's going to call Sarah, get in contact with her, and then he basically ghosts her, and she doesn't understand why, and she keeps trying to get into contact with him. The second book that I read was The Surrogate Mother by Freida McFadden. I actually didn't read this, I listened to this on audio. Freida McFadden is kind of hit and miss for me, and it's mostly miss. Her books are entertaining, but they're not something that I automatically just like want to read all the time, and if there's a new release, I'm not gonna go pick up Freida McFadden's new release. I think that she's a good palate cleanser, something quick to get through and something entertaining. I have been able to guess the plot twists, and I think that I definitely guessed the plot twist in this, which, you know, if I'm reading a thriller or a mystery type of book, I don't want to be able to guess that, and I feel like most of the time with Freida I can. I think it may be because I've read so many of her other books before that they're kind of starting to just be predictable. Even though they're different stories, they're just predictable at this point. The next book that I read was Dance of Thieves by Mary Pearson. I really enjoyed this book. Been in the mood for a fantasy slash romantasy. I don't really know what this is considered, if it's fantasy or romantasy. The beginning was a little bit slow. I will say I started this book off and I think the first like 60-70 pages dragged. Honestly, did not understand what was going on, and I don't know if I was just like not paying attention well enough to understand what was happening, or if it just was that boring at the beginning. It's dual POV. I also really liked the kind of found family in here as well. Our main character, Cassie, doesn't really have anyone in her corner, and she has this found family with the people that she works with for the Queen's Guard, and she also comes to find found family with the male love interests family. Next, I went ahead and picked up the second book in the duology, and that was Vow of Thieves by Mary Pearson. I still really enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as the first book, and a lot of people I have been seeing have said that Vow of Thieves makes Dance of Thieves look like child's play, and that this is much more action-packed. I liked Dance of Thieves better. This book, again, the beginning kind of dragged for me. I feel like it was just a copy and paste of what happened in the first book for the first part. Also didn't like it as much because our female main character and male main character were separated for like basically the entire book in this second one here, and I just didn't like that. I don't know, I think it took away from the story, but I still enjoyed it, but I definitely enjoyed the first one more. The next book that I read, I don't have it here physically with me, is The 10th Circle by Jodi Picoult. For some reason this like didn't work super duper well for me. I think part of the reason I didn't love it was because the chapters in this book were so long. So long, and I know that that was intentional. So the book's called The 10th Circle. A lot of it has to do with Dante's Inferno, his circles of hell. There was a chapter for each circle, so the whole, how many pages was this book? 387 page book. There were only, I think, 9 or 10 chapters, so the chapters were like 60-70 pages long. I could ever read the review that I wrote on my Goodreads for this, because I feel like it just kind of captures my opinion of this book, but I said, this book reminded me of Beartown by Fredrik Backman, except this was written before Beartown, and Beartown was way better, written in third person, but you get all the perspectives of all the different characters, and it shifts, and necessarily you don't know whose perspective it is until you are a decent way through that, reading that part. There was a plot twist, if you could even call it that, at the end, and I guessed that plot twist as well. I was kind of hoping for something more shocking. I didn't even know there was really going to be a plot twist to be had, but there was, and because I knew I guessed it, it was kind of like, oh, like I wish I, you know, it was something more shocking for me. the things that the author had one of the characters doing in this book, the character is 14 years old, freshman in high school, I believe. Not age appropriate, which maybe that was the point, I don't know, but I just think like it was kind of odd that she was writing 14-year-olds to be this way. So that kind of wasn't working for me. It was just a little bit off-putting to me as well. Next, I read Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. I'm not going to rate this because it's a memoir and I don't think that people should be rating someone's personal stories that they're choosing to share with the world. So I did enjoy this. I listened to this on audio and kind of did the immersive read where I was reading this along as the audiobook was playing, just to kind of fully immerse me in this story and the culture that she's basically trying to find a place, like find belonging and find her identity. Next, I read The Whisper Man by Alex North. I listened to this on audio. So in this book, our main characters are dealing with the loss of a loved one, and they kind of move to a new place to have a fresh start and whatnot. And to the town that they move into, there was a notorious serial killer who was nicknamed the Whisper Man because he would whisper in kids' windows at night to kind of lure them. And that killer was caught, and now these main characters that we're following have moved to this new town. There are starting to be stories of this kind of happening again, where there's a man whispering in the window and kids are disappearing. The current Whisper Man who is incarcerated must know something, so we get perspectives of them talking with the current Whisper Man to figure out who this new person is. Next, I read Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. I have been wanting to read one of her books for a while now. I really enjoyed this book. I was worried about reading it in the wintertime because it is a summer romance. Really enjoyed it. It was a super quick read. It's not very long. I think it's under 300 pages. Yeah, like 285 pages. I am one who hates a romance that drags, that just beats around the bush, has a ton of miscommunication, third act breakup. But I think that this book just was direct. It said what needed to be said. There wasn't a bunch of side plots going off to try to make the book longer. I appreciated it. It said what it needed to say, and it was entertaining. It did what it needed to do. Basically, we have the main character, which her name is, why can't I remember her name? Sam. So we have Sam, who is engaged and is living her life in New York City, and her parents have a beach house on, I believe it's Long Island. And when she was a child, they always spent summers there, and as she has grown into an adult, she stopped going there because of something that happened. So she comes back to Long Island with her now fiance to look at a wedding venue, and she kind of reconnects with someone from her past, and that is where we kind of pick up the story, and we're getting a then and now point of view, which I also like. Next, I read Magic Hour by Kristen Hanna, and I loved this book. I'm a big fan of Kristen Hanna's writing, and this was kind of unlike her typical like historical fiction. I don't know what I would necessarily categorize this as, kind of like a mystery, thrillery, but also fiction, following two female main characters that are sisters, Julia and I think it's Ellie. Julia is a psychologist, and she has an issue in her career that kind of makes her lose her credibility. Basically, she reconnects with her sister. Her sister is a police officer, and she has this case come up where she's like, I need a psychologist, can you please come and work with this child, I need your help. This child just kind of appears out of the Olympic National Forest randomly one day. She is considered a wild child, so it seems that she has had very limited or no contact with the outside world, that she was raised in the forest. She can't speak. She basically acts like an animal. She arrives into the town with a wolf, so then they're assuming like the wolves kind of took her in and raised her as their own. And they don't know where she came from. They're trying to find her parents, her family. So Ellie and Julia are kind of working together and also working to form a relationship with this child. It's more than just the mystery. It's about the two sisters reconnecting, and about Julia kind of finding the confidence in herself and in her career to work with this child after having this kind of setback. It's almost a 5-star for me, but there were a couple of things that I couldn't kind of get past. A little bit of a plot gap, and I'm not going to say in which part because it kind of spoils it. Eventually you do figure out like where this child comes from, and when we do, I just think that there's a plot gap with the person that they find is related to her, responsible, her guardian. Things just weren't clicking there for me. I think it was kind of rushed. It was frustrating because we were anticipating this for literally the entire book. When it came time to resolve that, I think it was rushed a little bit and wasn't done as well as it could have been. Ellie, the sister who was the cop, frustrated me a lot in this book. She's kind of very selfish and self-centered, which I don't mind that if that kind of gets resolved and there is character growth. And I feel like up until the last like literally 30 pages of the book, there was minimal growth for her character, and then at the end we just see this exponential amount of growth, and it just doesn't make sense how she went from one way to completely being different in the matter of less than 30 pages. That just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like it needed to happen more over time. Next, I read See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And in this book, we are following our main character named Barrett, and she has just gone off to college, and she meets this guy in her physics class on the first day of school, and she wakes up the next day and she is repeating her first day of college over and over again. And she eventually finds out that this guy she met in her physics class is also stuck in this time loop, and they're kind of working together to find their way out of this time loop of reliving the same day over and over again. Liked this book, I enjoyed it. It was cute, good palate cleanser, quick read. I think I read it in like a day. This was also Barnes & Noble's $5 book that you would get if you made a purchase at the cafe, so that's why I went ahead and picked this up. I think it was a little bit long. Again, the romance books for me, like when we're making them longer than they need to be, I'm like, just get to the point. Just get to the point. Come on, we don't need to be dragging this out. Way too many days. Like, they're reliving the same day over and over again. I think that it could have been cut a little bit. Like, I don't need every single day. Like, I think it was like 2.5 weeks, maybe longer. So we're getting the same day for 2.5 weeks over and over and over in this book. Like, I kind of wish it was less days, or maybe like you could have skipped some of the days. Like, we don't need a detailed explanation of what happens every single day. As well, the ending also, I'm sorry, I enjoyed it. It was cute, but the ending also just, again, we're going through this big long book of living in the same day over and over and over. You're building up to them figuring out how to get out of the time loop, and then I feel like what should have been the climax turnaround point was just kind of like glossed over. Like, there wasn't as much detail and thought put into the time traveling part as to why they were experiencing this day over and over again as there should have been. Like, I would have liked there to be more of that and less of the days leading up to that. Next, I read Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. We basically follow our female main character, and she is the daughter of the Pirate King, essentially, and he gives her a special mission that she needs to be captured on purpose, basically, and be taken prisoner, and while she is prisoner, she needs to find this map that her father is looking for. Along the way, there's like a romance involved. She meets one of the workers on the ship, the captain's brother, I believe it was. So there's a little like subplot of romance into this. It was a good audiobook, quick, easy read, but nothing, I don't really have any notes. Nothing special, nothing groundbreaking. It was good. The last book that I read in the month of January was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. Much enjoyed this book. Elizabeth Zott is who we follow, and basically she is a woman in STEM in the 1950s/60s, and we're just following her and kind of seeing all of the stereotypes in the 1950s and 60s, and she is not for them. She is the most outspoken, bold female main character that I have ever read, and I am laughing because she was just so blunt and would literally just call anyone out on what they were saying and be like, no, that's actually not correct, to another woman in the book. And this woman is like, oh, well, you know, because we have to like be at home and cook things for our families. And Elizabeth's like, actually, no, I don't know what you're talking about, because don't need to do that just because we're women. Like, just things like that. Like, she would just straight up say, like, actually, no, you're not correct. And it wasn't just other women that she was saying this to, but it was to anyone in her life who would listen. She ends up leaving her STEM job. She's a chemist. She leaves her STEM job and she is like a TV star who hosts a cooking show every day for 30 minutes, and she teaches her audience like the chemistry behind cooking. So she still is like living up to her chemist scientist career on TV, and she basically just inspires all of these women to feel useful and like they can do more. And she basically just makes these women feel smart and like they can do anything, and she becomes a big inspiration. I was just laughing a lot in this book, and I wasn't laughing at the things that she was experiencing because they weren't funny. I was more so laughing at the way that she was so blunt and was saying these things to people. I also loved the 6:30 perspective. So 6:30 is Elizabeth Zott's dog, and we get his little perspective in here. And she basically, as a scientist, so she's kind of working to train her dog to know all of these human words. So with all of that being said, that brings my total to 12 books that I read in January. I haven't had a 5-star yet. I'm hoping in the month of February that I will get a 5-star read. I am, like I said in my last video, trying to work my way through my physical TBR, and I have noticed that I've just kind of been buying books because I've heard about them and not necessarily because they interest me. So I don't know how many 5-star books I will be reading this year, because like I said, I am trying to read my physical TBR even if I may not 100% enjoy the book, which maybe I shouldn't be doing that, but if I bought the book I want to read it, so I'm gonna work my way through there and hopefully get some 5 stars. I do definitely have potential to get a lot of 5 stars. It's just when those will pop up for me. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.